Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This is your 5 minutes of free legal advice, so make the most of it. As the slide says, I'm a partner at BIRKETT Long. I'm a commercial property lawyer, but I've had an environmental and energy expertise since the end of the 1980s. And if it makes it easier for you to remember me, think of me as the Jolly Green Giant. I'm also on the strategic board of the South East LEP, so I'm sort of here in two capacities, really. So why should you be concerned about sustainability, interested in it, and looking for energy efficiency? I think there are 5 reasons. First of all, saving the planet. Secondly, reputation. Thirdly, contract tendering. Fourthly, regulatory compliance. And fifthly, saving costs. And despite what the Prime Minister said yesterday about booting energy companies with their kitten heels, energy costs, as we've just heard, are going to keep going up. Well, is climate change happening? Mariana has just spoken to you. There are, of course, plenty of skeptics out there who say it isn't. Mariana and I have got a number of figures. Luckily, they're all the same, so obviously they must be correct. But I've got a couple of slides which give some different approaches to the ones that Mariana had. I'm going to zip through these because Mariana's already given a presentation. There's a leading expert at Essex University here, Professor Jules Pretty, in this area, and some of these figures came from him. I think 1 or 2 of these, if I can pick them out. In the UK, we use on average 110 litres of water per person per day. In Las Vegas, they use 1,600 litres of water per person per day. Who can have that many baths? Honestly. At the moment, there are 81 cars per 100 people in America. There are 2 cars per 100 people in India. They're going to increase that, aren't they? They all want to have the same sort of consumption, the same sort of levels of living as we do in the West. The government, in trying to get us to come out of the last recession, wanted us to consume our way out of it. It's all about consumption, and unfortunately, that conflicts with the environment. And when you get that amount of consumption, you get more carbon emissions, you get higher levels of carbon in the atmosphere, and that means the temperature goes up and the sea levels increase, as Mariana has said. And a significant temperature rise would lead to up to 250 million people having to move away from coastal areas, and New York would be underwater. So some of the impacts of climate change are not all that bad. The second reason, reputational. Now, we all know M&S and John Lewis, and some of you will probably know that the big property developer Hammerson have a real green agenda. Now, that is, of course, because they know their customers want to see it. They have corporate social responsibility, but also the bottom line is it is saving them money. You may well think that reputation doesn't bother to you quite so much, but there will be some of you for whom it does. The other reason I said was contract tendering. If you are a business who is looking to contract with a major business, with local authorities, with government departments, then they will want to know what your environmental policy and plan is. You won't be able to tender without that. So if you're in the supply chain, you need to have an environmental plan. The fourth reason was regulatory compliance. Here's a number of the different pieces of legislation. Now, admittedly, most of these have been driven by Europe. We've already heard, of course, that these are going to continue, that there are going to be changes when the government triggers our formal exit from Europe. But the fact is, most of these points will remain or indeed increase. So the last reason that you really need to think about sustainability and energy efficiency, and I'd urge you to think about water as well as electricity and gas, is saving costs. Oops. And you can do that in a number of ways. Of course, you could put solar PV on the roof of your premises. You could use biomass. You could have heat pumps. You could have anaerobic digestion to cut your costs by generating power yourselves. But the other side of that coin is to stop wastage. look to insulate, look to stop leaks, and carry out alterations to the property to make sure that you are as energy efficient as possible. The BIRKETT Long new office that Colchester Borough Council are building for us in Colchester is going to be a green building and highly energy efficient. So can you do that? Well, if you own your property, if you have the freehold, you can do pretty much what you like, provided and subject to planning and building regulations, and you will potentially need building regulation approval for some of the alterations you might want to carry out. There might be covenants that affect your land, and the other thing obviously you'll need to comply with is making sure you can get the funding to do it, and today is all about helping you get that funding. If you lease your property, then you'll still have those considerations, but you will also need to get your landlord's permission. For alterations, particularly if you only rent part of a larger building, you won't be able to carry out structural works at all. You will probably be able to carry out other alterations with landlord's consent not to be unreasonably withheld. So you will need to go to the landlord. Don't do it without it, because otherwise you may find yourselves in trouble. You will have obligations to comply with statutory obligations. So these changes that are coming in, you'll have to do it. At the end of your lease term, you'll have to reinstate the property, otherwise you'll be hit with a dilapidations bill. Now, it's arguable that if you've actually improved the energy efficiency of the building, the landlord won't want you to take those works out, but it's something to discuss with them when you're looking to carry out these works and alterations. And there are a number of other factors here. Lawyers, if you'll excuse the pun, were projecting a lot of hot air about changes to the aircon units and R22 gas, which you can no longer use in air conditioning units. And did that mean tenants had an obligation to change the whole aircon system in their unit or not? Well, I think we've all agreed that you don't have to do that, and actually, because it's not a disrepair, the aircon unit may not be capable of working because you can't use the R22 gas, but you're still complying with your tenant covenants. And finally, I just wanted to mention flooding. Mariana mentioned it very briefly. You may have heard of the scheme between the government and the Association of British Insurers called Flood Ray. This helps residential properties. It is no help whatsoever to commercial premises. So if you're in an area that is likely to be hit by flooding, you will find your insurance premiums going up. If you lease your property, it's probably the landlord who insures it. You need to have a look at how you can control those costs. And finally, BIRKETT Long, we can help you with all of these aspects that I've been talking about. If it's the property, we can help you with getting landlord's consent. We can help you with the commercial agreements that you have, and we can help you on the environmental side. As I said, my name's David Rayner, the Jolly Green Giant. Thank you very much.